You are running with the Devils, and we are here talking rivalry, the ASU U of A matchup, the duel in the desert this week. We can't wait. We're going down to Tucson. Hope you are as well. I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me as always, Big John Caldwell. And Big John, it's been another rough stretch for the Devils this season. Their third straight loss at the hands of the Oregon State Beavers in the Devils' home finale this past Saturday. Tough one to take. But we'll get into all of that. As we say here on RWD, you give us 30 minutes, we give you the world of Arizona State football. We're coming to you a little early this week because of Turkey Day tomorrow. We're going to be talking everything ASU football as the Devils prepare for their Territorial Cup matchup with the U of A Wildcats. Of course, we'll get into Oregon State. We'll recap that a little bit, but it's hate week, and we're talking everything ASU and U of A. We'll definitely get into our favorite Territorial Cup memories. That's coming up here on the show. We'll certainly talk that. Of course, plenty of hate to go around for the mild rats, as we like to call them. And Big John, it's always a fun time to be a Sun Devil, talking rivalry with that one school down south.
Yeah, I mean, usually there's something at stake. All that's at stake now is bragging rights and maybe some recruiting.
The Territorial Cup certainly is always at stake with these two teams lock horns. And we'll be talking our favorite memories, of course. Big John, I mean, it's a kind of a rough season. Certainly not ideal for both schools, as they're both kind of in the midst of rebuilding. U of A probably a little bit further along at this point than ASU is for where they're wanting to be and where they're wanting to go. Right. But ASU will still be looking for that sixth straight Territorial Cup victory. Have not won six straight over U of A since the 50s. So definitely plenty to play for this coming Friday down there in Tucson.
And you know what, Ryan, the thing that I think true Sun Devils got to really remember, and I think everybody keep this front and center. You're there to support the kids, the players.
Yes.
It's nothing worse than playing in an empty stadium or playing with no fans in the stands. I mean, you gotta keep support. If you don't like, I know you don't like the athletic director, you don't like the coach, all that stuff. None of that matters to these kids right now. It's winning this game, and they need to know that they're appreciated and that someone's got their back. So, I mean, I'm not, me, I'm not the guy who leaves early. I'll stay to the bloody end. And my point is, we're doing this to support the players right now. And there's some damn good players, and there's some players that there's some great kids who are seniors that need to go out properly. And I know they didn't win last week, but I know that they looked at those last two games and said they had major significance. And there's still a lot of legacy to go around in this game, as far as saying that you have for both teams, really. You have two teams with very similar records. They're not going to bowl games, but this is for the state bragging rights and for a little bit of recruiting advantage, and for the cup itself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's usually, even though there is something usually at stake, whether it be bowl position or what have you. There, games like this where these two teams, they have similar records, like you mentioned. There usually is. There's a lot more to play for than just what comes next. This is your bowl game, essentially. This is your postseason. This is your state championship to play for, to go out there and give it your best and become a rivalry legend. There have been quite a few in this matchup. So fans definitely remember those kids that go out there and make big plays in rivalry games. So and there's certainly plenty to play for in this game.
You have a lot of kids who transferred in who are from out of state who don't appreciate the history and the rivalry and what that school tried to do and keep ASU from being a university. And so I think what's happened is Iguana's very aware of that, and he played some video for the kids to let them see what the history was all about. And he's been playing the U of A fight song that's really been agitating them in practice. So
down Arizona.
That's right. So Iguano gets it, and I know he's doing his best to impart
Hey,
all this.
they're almost okay. They're almost okay right there. That just that little bit. They're
And
almost okay. Can't quite get there.
You know, Ryan, it's personal.
Very much so.
It's
Yes,
personal.
especially for someone like myself who was born and raised here, who knows it's considered some U of A fans to be friends. Not so much this week, but still, there's plenty of trash talking going back and forth. There's certainly bragging rights at stake. This game does mean something to the fans, and it should mean something to the players because they know. I guarantee you, even if they aren't from Arizona, they know kids on the other side of that, other sideline.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll definitely get into that more here in a little bit. But of course, we got to recap the Devils matchup with Oregon State this past Saturday. It was senior day. It was homecoming. It was brutal at times, to say the least. The Devils on to Oregon State 31-7. Just the Beavers' second ever win at Sun Devil Stadium, and their first since 2009. They're now 2-19 in Tempe overall. And that came as a bit of a surprise to me, Big John. I mean, Oregon State has not had the most successful teams in the past, but John Smith definitely has them heading in the right direction. They came in and played very well.
Mm-hmm. I talked to a lot of their fans, a lot of their players' fathers after the game. Very complimentary of the facilities, the stadium, the whole vibe, the show we put on. They really enjoyed it here, and of course, they really enjoyed the weather and the fact that they got to come down and play golf, and not have their ball flooded everywhere they were playing. So no, it was a
little different than Corvallis, I imagine.
This time of year, yes, it is. But I met a bunch of guys who said, "Come on up, we'll have a good time when we play up there next."
Nice.
But no, there's always in this kind of game. I think there's always there's two. You can look at it like there's teams are either ascending or descending, and ASU looks like they're going to have to bottom out here a little bit before they're going to get better. And this is a program that, as we talked about last week, not getting the best recruits, but they're coaching kids up. And let me tell you, they are really looking forward to beating Oregon this week and really
the Civil War. Yes,
they're. I mean,
that'll definitely be a good matchup.
I think that's going to be the best game of the week.
Very well could be. Other than
in the
Pac-12, yes, because a lot of their rivalry games kind of happened already. I think the Apple Cup will be a pretty good game as well. But Civil War, even as bad as Oregon State teams have been, they've always been able to get up for that game, and they definitely got up for this game this past week.
I was very impressed with
Martinez, their true freshman running back, looked as good as advertised. He had
they didn't have the three-headed monster. They had one of the guys out.
And I mean that was Damian. They kind of didn't really need him with the way Damian Martinez was running. He averaged over 6 yards a carry. He had 2 touchdowns. And I was very impressed by Ben Gobranson. He did not play like a backup quarterback. He didn't really show up on the stat sheet as much of a runner, but he definitely ran when he needed to. Picked up some first downs.
Mm-hmm.
He had 36 yards on 9 carries and a score, and also managed the game very well through the air. He was on target quite a bit. He played an excellent game.
He did.
Yes. And some bright spots for ASU. Ex-Valade continues to be a great offensive threat, and definitely one of the I think the player of the year for ASU's team. 13 carries, 109 yards, and a touchdown. He's now at almost 1,100 yards rushing for the season. And then Jalen Conyers continues to be a force in the receiving game, 6 receptions for 49 yards. It's good to see him continue to get involved in the offense and lead the way there. What we learned, this is what we do after every ASU defeat, trying to build on that and try to take stock of what happened this past week. Presented by Flagstar Bank. For all your mortgage needs, check out xllending.com, team.com. And for me, the inability to cover the tight end, I think, definitely warrants mentioning. It's been building these past couple weeks. Even teams that don't really use the tight end that much. Oregon State definitely does. But coming into this game, I mean, Jack Velling at the beginning of the year was like their second or third string tight end and only had a little over 100 yards total receiving on the season.
Right.
He was the beneficiary of some serious blown coverages. He had 3 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown.
Right.
That really can't happen. I mean, we've seen it week in and week out. Devils are playing a lot of zone in the secondary, but they seem to just overlook the tight end underneath. They're all dropping to where the receivers are. Nobody's picking up the tight end, which is a big problem. And I'm hoping that they will get it fixed this week, but it's definitely something that's worth mentioning. And this defense has struggled covering tight ends all of a sudden, and that's got to change.
Yeah, it's a zone that's man around the edges of the box they have. Right. They're supposed to come up and play more man, closer to the man when they get a read or a tell of where the play's going. In other words, they don't stay just in that box. They're supposed to drop out of that box, and that's the problem. They keep guys like Velling kept finding that seam all day.
Yeah, and he was their leading receiver when really he hadn't been much of a receiving threat most of the season.
He was a good mismatch.
Yeah, that was the thing. And then even on a simple bootleg, I mean, they all went with the running back and the line, and nobody covered the quarterback, nobody covered the tight end. They just had nothing but open space in front of them a few times. It just can't happen. And Elijah Badger's suddenly become the missing man in that offense. Just 9 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown in the past 2 games after it looked like he was blown up there with some of his performances against Washington and Colorado. Just a non-factor. It seems like they're not getting him the ball enough, and when they are, it's on screens. And this is not a very good screen. This is not a very good screen team. They do not. Right. They'll run screens, try to take advantage and slow down a pass rush, but they don't execute them very well. Plain and simple. They have not had a lot of success in the screen game this year, and Elijah Badger's been just kind of the forgotten man, I think, a little bit in that secondary. He's still their best receiving threat, but they just haven't gone to him enough, I think, in my opinion, which is a problem because of his ability to make plays after the catch.
Right.
If you can get him into open space, he's a guy who can definitely stretch the field for you with what he can do after the catch. And
he's a lot like
hasn't gotten the opportunities.
I agree. No, he's best in space, and he's a lot. The player he most reminds me of really is Brandon Ayuk in terms of the breakaway speed and the ability to. If you saw that route last night, that Ayuk run, against the Cardinals.
Monday night, yes.
Monday night, my goodness, he left him in the next county.
Well, yeah, that's what he does. That's what I think they need to utilize Elijah Badger a little bit more that way to get him going. When he was catching balls, remember that Stanford game,
right?
With the type of plays that he was making after the catch. You just got to give him that opportunity. They just haven't been doing much of that. Hopefully that changes this week as well.
And I had a couple. It's obvious we're still banged up and had people sick on both sides of the ball, and it just really shows just how thin we really are. The talent really drops off at the 2s and 3s, and then and I hate to be the person that has to announce this to people if you haven't been watching Twitter today, but Norman Omar Lott has declared that he's going to the portal. This will be his last game, and I can tell you from my contacts, there's other players that are also going to be putting themselves in the portal here pretty soon, and this is probably to be expected. We talked about this in the pre-show tonight, and that was that when you have a coaching change, no matter if it's mid-season or at the end of the season, you're going to have people going to want to leave, and because people, we had the Markham brothers who clearly checked out the day after Herm left.
Right.
And they were so emotionally upset about this thing, but yet for most of these kids, either they didn't get the film they were looking for this year, they didn't get the opportunity, or they still bought into the coach, thinking that Herm was going to get him to the pros. He was a pro model guy and going to coach him up. In Lott's case, I think I don't know that he's going to. I think you made a good point in the pre-show, and that is, he's got to find just the right program. Not every program is right for a guy his size. He does have north-south speed. His east-west speed is not great. He has a great first step. He has a little spin move he does. It's kind of cool. But I kind of see with what I'm hearing from dads and players and other people, there's more guys. They're not on the same page about beating U of A right now. So this is really concerning to me. So that's what I learned. And quite frankly, it's more right. Maybe it's the era we live in a portal NIL than it is about winning and legacy. But
True.
you're going to look back on this in 40 years, guys, and you're going to wonder, was the grass greener? I know it looks that way, and maybe for a paycheck someplace.
Because it's fertilized with bullshit.
Well,
Pardon my language.
don't give up on ASU in terms of its ability. We're the number 5, 6 market in the country, and we're going to be able to raise some money around here pretty soon. Something's coming, trust me. And
Yeah, the administration was just so slow on the uptick with the NIL that they were
even though it wasn't
behind everybody else. And
it wasn't their responsibility. Yeah, technically, it's not their
together.
responsibility. They can't have anything to do with it, but they can still show leadership in ways. And I think it is from things I'm gathering now. It's starting to come
even
together.
Something just as simple as encouragement, as saying,
well, not talking it down.
Not just belittling it as a fad and saying it's not going to work the way they did. I think would have gone a long way. It seems like they thought it was just going to be a passing thing, and then things would go back to the way they were when the game's never going to be like it was.
True leadership would have been looked like having ASU take an active role amongst the PAC and the other Power 5 schools.
We're the number one in innovation. Remember?
Right, and my point is, you take the leadership role by saying, look, NC2A is not going to regulate this. It's obvious they can't mandate. They can't even regulate their own mandate, and because they're so afraid of losing their antitrust status that it's going to take the schools, the presidents, the athletic directors to come up with their own set of rules, their own governance on this thing.
Not to mention their nonprofit status.
Right, and so. And that's the exemption, right? You're allowed to make all this money on all these sports tournaments, and yet they're nonprofit. Yeah, my point of all this is you had a choice, and I know everybody wants to criticize Ray and all this, but you did have a choice in leadership and taking the reins of leadership on this thing, and rather than poo-poo NIL and portal and say, "Oh, we like it the way it used to be." It was an opportunity to take leadership and to get out ahead of this thing and to tell the rest of the world certain things like, Gentry going to USC for 500 grand as clearly an inducement, which is not the way it's supposed to, the NIL set up.
It was tampering.
Yeah. And my point is that should have been a huge flag to our alum, to our boosters, to that when somebody comes here and poaches a kid like that, a freshman All-American, takes him and he's doing real well. I mean, for a while there, he was their leading tackler at SC. That should have been the wake-up call, yet it hasn't been. So the opportunity for leadership is ripe right now, I believe.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get a coach in here who can be that leader and be that guy that can take us into this kind of new era of college football. So, that's what we learned this week, presented by Flagstar Bank. Again, for all your mortgage needs, check out xllendingteam.com. Now, as we get into hate week, rivalry week, our favorite ASU and U of A memories. And Big John, so many to go through. I certainly remember my first time going down to the old Pueblo in 2006. Dirk Cutter's final game as head coach of ASU. Nobody really gave the Devils a shot in that game, and they really went out like gangbusters from the get-go, led 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and ultimately pulled away from the Rats. They're winning 28-14. Jamal Lewis had a nice touchdown in that game. Zach Miller had a touchdown. Dimitri Nance had capped off a big drive at near the end of the game to put it away for the Devils. And I remember a couple ASU players at the end of the game playing keep away with a U of A fan taking his flag and dragging it on the ground and all this stuff. So that was a fun one, and it was my first time going down there for the game, which was really great. And then when I lived on campus at ASU, seeing the Devils go 3-0 from 05 to 07 was really great. That 05 game, the student section just went completely nuts when Terry Richardson took that punt back for a touchdown and the 2-point conversion to tie it. And then Jesse Ainsworth kicking the game-winning field goal at the end to win 23-20 was just nuts. That was such a great atmosphere.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember Jesse, his dad and I were pretty good buddies. We used to travel all around the country for ASU games. And
Nice.
I've got all of his photographs. He was quite a photographer, John Ainsworth was, and I've got all of his photos. I'm going to go back. I got a whole lot of them going way back to Frank's last game as a head coach in '78 when Mark Malone threw 2 touchdowns. The U of A kicker, Zivix, I think his name was, missed a wide left 45-yard field goal. We won.
That was 6 years before I was born, so I know you're not asking me.
18-17 ASU pulls that out.
Nice.
The 92 game was some of you maybe remember something called Desert Swarm.
The Desert Swarm defense. Yes,
right. This was the last year of Desert Swarm, right? And that
kind of died out in the mid 90s.
Yeah, 92 was pretty much about the end of it. And so they were dominating it.
They were still good enough to go to the Fiesta Bowl in '94 and shut out Miami.
Correct. But the 92 squad was dominating us on defense for 3 quarters. But then a 4th string tailback, Kevin Galbraith catches a 51-yard TD right near the end of the game to win it for us, and so that was thrilling. That was at 7-6. There was a defensive struggle. We kept up with them on defense.
Wow.
So that's just a couple of mine. But yeah,
then a couple of them, just going down to Tucson and pulling out some victories, late. Those were always fun, especially 2010. The overtime game with the block extra points, James Brooks. Blocking Alex Zendejas there at the end to win in overtime. That was a crazy game.
That was Nick Foles. That was Nick Foles throwing to David Douglas. Yeah. And
Brooks technically didn't block the second one. Zendejas just kicked it into his offensive lineman and it ricocheted away.
It hit. Yeah, Brooks got a kind of hit it, or fell into Brooks a little bit.
Yes. And then 2 years later, going down there and Todd Graham and Rich Rodriguez locking up for the first time after they had coached together at West Virginia.
Right.
Was a great storyline. And then ASU trailing by 10 going into the 4th quarter. Those U of A team really ran the ball well with Kadeem Carey, but Keelan Johnson ripping out the ball for Matt Scott, and that led to a touchdown. Marion Grice had a couple nice touchdown runs in that game. Kevin Ayers with the big block punt, setting up the Cameron Marshall touchdown, and then the Robert Nelson interception that just seemed to go on forever. And he was finally brought down inside the 5, and Michael Eubank running it in a couple plays later to effectively seal the game. That was a crazy game. I remember going to Old Town Scottsdale to watch that with my cousin. And
did you go down with us for
that was just insane.
Were you there?
I really wish I was there for that game, but
were you there for the most hated man in Tucson, RyKno?
Oh yeah, of course I was. Yes, I was there in 2018. That was an epic game.
Came from 19 down.
Down 19 points in the 4th quarter, and having that big touchdown run, and Shari Crosswell with the interception, Tyler Johnson with the fumble recovery, the Tommy Hudson 2-point conversion. Oh yeah, I remember that game very, very well. That was
wide right.
That was
wide right. Wide right.
And then Lucas Haversick pushing the ball wide right, obviously. That was huge. And who could forget last year with Jack Jones taking the pick 6 back and chucking it into the student section. He drew a flag, but man, that was crazy.
That was a lot of fun. I don't think
some great memories in the past, 10, 15 years that I certainly treasure.
And while everybody will say they were there, nobody was. The 70-7 game, of course.
Well, we couldn't be there, though, because of COVID.
Well, but 30 years from now, people can still they can the legend will grow on that game.
And then you had, well, yeah, and then you had, you just had the friends and family in the
Right,
stands
right.
for that one.
Well, right here, right above my desk is the No Pity for the Kitty billboard painting by Christopher Roach.
I
And
saw a guy wearing one of those at the tailgate last week,
that right.
and yeah, that was really great. That was crazy. I mean, what ASU did to them. I mean, yeah, U of A was kind of a lame duck team at the time. We all knew Kevin Sumlin was probably going to be fired, but
Correct,
for
correct.
ASU to go out there and put on the performance they did from the opening kickoff, DJ Taylor taking it in the end zone and heading up the right sideline. It was on from there, and then capping it off with a Jackson He touchdown. That was, man, that was a great feeling to beat up on that team that way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they
Felt
they use
amazing.
that as locker room motivation still to this day. I'm sure they like to get stick just to get guys pissed off and get them angry. Show them clips of that game. But no, we're going to go down there and have some fun. Like I say,
Yeah,
we're not going because we're going to a big bowl game. I think you and I have the same kind of look at this. It's we are looking ahead. We're looking for brighter days, but we're also mindful of the kids who are busting butt and who really who deserve support. So I know some people are like, I don't want to drive all the way down there just to lose. Who looks at life that way?
yeah. No, none
Seriously.
of us do. Even those of us who are going down there. Of course, we're
Yeah.
not going down there to lose. We
No,
want to support our team, support our school, support the kids that we've rooted for these past few months.
yeah.
We still support now, even though the record isn't what we'd like it to be. The outcome certainly isn't what we expected this season. You had the team going 8-4. I had them going 7-5. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been disappointed this season. I mean, if you can't tell by the show, we're disappointed. We don't like losing 3, 4, 5 games in a row. It's not fun, but we still got to go down there and support the kids no matter
Yeah.
what. They deserve our support. They're going out there giving 110%, most
You
of
don't
them anyway.
you don't think Nebraska's last game that no one's going to show up? They're still going to pack that stadium, guys. I mean,
Oh yeah,
programs with legacy, programs who have won something, and we have won something in the past, don't give up. You don't.
no,
Because you recognize that it's hard. It's hard to win it. I mean, I hate to quote Herm, but it's hard to win it. It's hard to win something big. And
definitely.
so, you never know. Something great might happen this weekend,
Yeah, yeah.
this
I mean,
Friday.
that's why, and you want to be there for it. I mean,
We
I
talk
wish
about
I was there. I'd been there in 2012. I wish I'd been there in '96.
yeah.
You never know what's going to happen, but you definitely want to be there for it.
Mhm.
I think hopefully that'll be us come
And,
Friday.
and like I say, there's all just look at go look at around the country at all the teams with similar records that we have. There's a lot of really good programs who have the same records that U of A and ASU have right now,
Oh
and
yeah,
they're not rolling over. You don't think Texas or TCU who had crappy teams in the last 6, 7 years, they rolled over? They don't. You don't roll over. You don't say, I'm waiting for the new coach. I'm waiting for Ray to get fired. Then forget that. That's not how programs get built. You show up and show out. And that's what Sun Devils do. That's what
yeah, and
real.
that I mean, we've been able to do that. We've been spoiled, I think, to a certain extent. These past few years, we've kind of
Yeah.
got used to winning a certain number of games every year, and we obviously we'd like to win more, but we don't want to win less. And now we're kind of going through a valley a little bit uh, in the state of the program.
Hmm.
Things will get better. I mean, because they can't get much worse,
No.
but you still want to be there to support the team, support the kids, so you can, if nothing else, say you were there when the team wasn't very good, wasn't that
Hmm.
good, because it's easy to be a fan of a team that wins all the time. It's easy to be a fan of an Ohio State, an Alabama, a Georgia. It's easy to be a fan of one of those teams,
Hmm.
but true fans who support their team even when they're losing, that shows character, and that definitely says something.
Right. Right.
So, getting down to that one school down south, the Arizona Wild Rats, excuse me, Wildcats. They've certainly improved this year. They definitely made inroads in recruiting. They're 4-7 so far this year. They were eliminated from bowl contention with their loss to Washington State last week, but they're definitely a far cry from the 1-11 team that they were last year, when their only win came against a COVID-stricken Cal team. But they're still only 2-6 in the Pac-12. But
right.
one of those wins came 2 weeks ago against a very good UCLA team. So this is still a much improved U of A team. Certainly not the team we've seen the past 2 years that was just plain awful. They're
Wow.
definitely a serviceable football team now.
It's a bad omen. A wildcat just walked past my window right here in the backyard. Uh-oh. He's cruising for something.
See if he can get scared away by a dirt devil or something.
Oh, Lord.
But remember, ASU has won 5 straight in this rivalry, and Friday will mark 2,191 days since Arizona's last win over ASU in football.
That's a long time.
That is a very long time. Hopefully it'll continue. But a big reason for this turnaround has been the U of A hiring of Jed Fish, the longtime NFL assistant coach and one-time interim coach at UCLA. Really has turned this program around. He's recruited very well in California and UCLA. He's hit the transfer portal very well. Kind of recruited some small school kids and found success with them moving up to a higher level program. And I'll give him credit. He's done very well with this program, and kind of got them heading in a good direction.
One of the things he's done is he's brought in some that I give him credit for, and reason I put this up is because I think it's worthwhile for any new coach who may be coming in here to think about former great players who played at a high level, both in college and in pros, and even had maybe coaching experience at both levels. But Scotty Graham, who played at Ohio State, a great player there. He was an associate AD here for 6 years. And then Chuck Cecil, who played at U of A from 84 to 87, who had probably one of the most memorable plays of all time.
In 86,
In 86, when he ran back from 4 yards deep in the end zone, ran back a game winner. He's coaching DBs, and then you have a D-line coach, Ricky Hunley, who was also an All-American.
He's a Hall of Famer there.
Correct.
Got his name up there. Definitely bringing those alumni back who have pride in the program, believe in the program. That's
culture.
Definitely a step in the right direction for them, and certainly something ASU can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And as you take a look at U of A's schedule, they didn't actually play their typical cupcake non-conference schedule they usually do. They beat I think San Diego. They opened the new stadium this year in San Diego, that Snapdragon Stadium, and went out there. It looked like they were going to have a great season with going out and beating San Diego State that well. San Diego State's 7-4 this year, so they're a good team. They hung with Mississippi State through about the first half, and then Mississippi State kind of outclassed them in the second half. And but they kind of struggled against North Dakota State, who's a legit
FCS.
team.
Yeah.
They lose to a bad Cal team, beat a worse Colorado team, and then they go on a stretch of 4 straight losses against the class of the conference. But they did beat UCLA 2 weeks ago, and then they lose to Washington State in Tucson last week to eliminate them from bowl contention.
Was UCLA
a very up and down season? But I mean, they've been pretty solid. I mean, scoring almost 30, 40 points against Washington, USC, Utah. That's not nothing to sneeze at. They've had good stretches of good play, especially offensively this year.
UCLA was the big surprise, obviously, for everybody. And one has to ask, was this the classic trap game? Was UCLA looking ahead to USC?
They had SC last week, and that was probably the case, certainly, because U of A is always good for one of those wins a year where they go in.
Right.
They are the trap game.
But they're usually at home at night. Yeah, usually at home at night is when they do that.
Yeah, and they've done that. They've done that to Oregon a few times.
Yeah, correct.
They'll beat like a top 15, top 20 team, just out of nowhere, and that's kind of the highlight of their season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so for them to get that win, I think was certainly something to hang their hats on for this season. But still a little bit ways to go for this team, especially on defense. As you can see, they've given up over 40 points, numerous times this year, and that's still something to kind of build on for them going forward.
5 times.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Almost 6.
Almost 50 a few times.
Yeah, almost 6 with Mississippi State. Yep.
Right. I think Washington State kind of took their foot off the gas a little late last week.
That's a good point.
After they got that pick six, their defense kind of just laid off, and they kind of just took everything in stride from that point.
Right.
So,
well, preview.
The U of A offense, as you can see here, I still have a hard time calling them U Arizona. I don't know why. I'm so used to saying U of A.
Make up their mind, man.
Yeah, totally. But Jaden DeLaura, who was Washington State starter last year, played pretty well for them this year. Obviously, almost 3,500 passing yards, 65% completion, and with 24 touchdowns, and those 12 interceptions are a little.
That's the key
to
me.
Glaring. He had 4 against Washington State last week.
Yeah, that drove the number up.
Yeah, and then he's but he's been a bit of a dual threat. He's got 4 rushing touchdowns this year. He's a good athlete. He can get out and run. He's not the biggest guy, but certainly someone that you got to know where he is. And if he gets out of the pocket, you definitely got to know where he is and what he's going to do, because he's a weapon, to say the least. And speaking of weapons, the guy who seems like he's been there for 5 or 6 years now, Michael Wiley,
dual threat.
Kind of a Kevin Sumlin holdover for this team. He was big in this game last year, scored their only touchdown at the game in Sun Devil Stadium. And he's had himself a good year. They're not much of a running team, but they'll just kind of run to keep teams honest. But he's having a good year, 557 yards on the ground, averaging, over 5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. But he's a really great receiving threat. 33 receptions, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. And then they've gotten some contributions from Jonah Coleman, the true freshman, and DJ Williams, the Florida State transfer. That when they spell Michael Wiley, they've been pretty good this year. Combined 683 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the season. And then a guy who was on the Bolitnikoff Award watch list to begin the year, Jacob Cowing, the UTEP transfer, has had a tremendous year. 80 receptions, just over 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Dorian Singer, who he and DeLaura kind of got into it on the sideline last week, had a big blow up, and
just competitive. They're just being competitive.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it was. But he's having a nice year. He's gone over 1,000 yards on 63 receptions and 6 touchdowns on the year.
He's the burner, right? He's the faster of the two. Yeah,
he's the deep threat, and he was a guy who was making some big catches to open the game last year.
Right.
And then late in the game, got ejected for a flagrant unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So he plays with an edge. He's kind of a guy who likes to talk, guy who likes to get after it a little bit. He's a chippy player. But yeah, again, like you said, great athlete, burner, deep threat.
Right.
So can't be getting burned deep by him. And then the true freshman, Tetaroa McMillan, been a nice addition to this squad. Leads the team in touchdowns, 39 receptions, 702 yards on the season. He's come in as the highest rated recruit U of A has ever signed.
Yep. That was Ricky Hunley landed that guy.
Yeah. And he's played extremely well. He's from Anaheim, and he's been a real force, and expect him to just get better. And then of course, you got to know, as much as they've struggled against the tight end, you got to know where Tanner McLaughlin is at all times. The Southern Utah transfer has been a very good weapon for them. 33 receptions, 431 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. He's definitely someone that you got to know where he is, and they can't be giving up, big plays to the tight end in this game, especially not with the receiving threats that are out there as well. I mean, this three-headed monster for U of A in a receiving core is serious. This is about as much talent as they've had at the receiver position in a long time. So this offense certainly seems like it's heading in the right direction.
Did you see the press conference, the presser after we lost last week to? Did you hear Kyle Soley's comments? He was
I don't believe
okay.
so.
He didn't want to talk anything about Oregon State. Nothing. All he wanted to talk about. He was pissed, and all he wanted to do was talk about this game and going out with a win, and everybody playing their hardest. And I'm just expecting. Well, he's a leader, and you know the poor guy's playing with one arm, folks. His right labrum is torn to crap.
Right.
You know, and he can't lift it higher than horizontal right now. They've got a strap a band on there if you watch it closely. But I'm expecting him to drop in coverage and help out with the tight end. We talk about that tight end this bugaboo of getting behind the defense. There's one of your answers. But you're taking your best tackler and you're putting him in. He's going to have to cover a lot of ground in order to get there and go get the tight end, or at least go break up the pass or go pull an INT.
Yeah, I think that's what his strength is
right.
Drop into the passing lanes, kind of playing that zone. I'd also like to see him spy Delora a little bit. That I think would be good because he's proven himself as a dual threat.
Yeah, so. Take his legs out. Take his legs away. Take that one aspect of the game away. Certainly.
Yeah, I don't want to see another game where the quarterback just goes through those running lanes and picks up a first down after first down. Seems to happen quite a bit against this defense, and hopefully I definitely like to see this defense show up against this offense because they put up some big games this year, and they put up a lot of stats. They're a great throwing team.
Yeah.
But Michael Wiley could still go off. He's a shifty, fast back.
Right.
They definitely have some weapons on this offense.
Right. The good news is that
keeping them contained has got to be job one for that defense.
I agree. So we're going to get into their defense here for a sec.
Yeah, and then this defense, they've given up a lot of points this year, and it starts with that rushing attack. They're going over 200, averaging over 200 yards rushing allowed, 37 points a game. But they still got some players. They got some guys who've gone out there and made plays at times. Only 2 interceptions as a team this year, so they're not really ball hawks, but they're they still get after. They try to keep things in front of them. They do have a lot of tackles for loss as a team, which is impressive, and it starts with their safeties. And Jackson Turner, the field safety, 71 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and an interception on the year. And the boundary safety, Christian Young, seemed like he's been there quite a while. 69 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, a half sack, 2 passes defense. Both those guys, they're solid. They'll bring them into the box quite a bit in run coverage. They're probably going to sell out the stuff that run in this game, and hopefully help the offensive line get up to the next level and do something against these safeties because they've been very good this year.
But there's not a great linebacking core here, is there?
No, not statistically. No.
Yeah.
Usually when we preview these defenses, it's usually the linebackers leading the team in tackles. This team is the safeties, so that should tell you a lot that teams are putting up some big offensive games against these teams, against this U of A defense. And then the USC transfer, Hunter Echols plays kind of the what they call the cap position, which is kind of like that edge rusher, hybrid defensive end, outside linebacker. And he plays it pretty well. He's got 8 tackles for loss this year to go along with 4.5 sacks. And he'll punch the ball out. He's forced 2 fumbles and recovered 2 this season. So even though they don't have a lot of it, they only have 2 interceptions as a team, they've also recovered 9 fumbles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they will punch it out. They'll try to just strip the ball. They will get after it against the ball carriers, certainly. And then just finishing up this defense here, Jalen Harris plays on the other side of Echols. He's had a good year, sets the edge very well. 45 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 3 passes defense. And then their nickel corner, Gunnar Maldonado, he's very active. He'll get after it. He has 42 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles. It's also somebody who will punch at the ball and do a lot of different things. And then the Bowling Green transfer, Jerry Roberts, is having a strong year. 67 tackles, a tackle for loss, pass defense, fumble recovery, fumble, forced fumble. So he's really filling up that stat sheet as well. And somebody in the middle that you got to know where he is at all times. So that's the Arizona defense again. Giving up a lot of points, giving up a lot of yards. Haven't really found their identity necessarily, but certainly some team that they have some players on it, and they're not going to wow you with their athleticism, but still solid players out there. And then now our keys to the game, presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Support local athletics. Check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And for me, just as far defensively, you got to get home. That pass rush has got to get after it, collapse that pocket, force Delora to make some mistakes. He's been prone to the interception this year, and ASU they have gotten some turnovers at stretches for this year. They can pick some balls off. They can make plays on the ball when the opportunity presents itself. They just got to force Delora to make some mistakes. Don't let him get a clean pocket. And he's thrown 12 interceptions this year. He threw 4 against Washington State last week. He's somebody who he'll sling it around a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you can get in the passing lanes and get home on him and get some hits on him, he can get rattled. So that's definitely got to be job one for that defense.
Yep.
And then run offensively, run early, run often. Establish that line of scrimmage, put Valladay and Nagata to work, and wear down that Rats front. And most importantly, keep the chains moving and keep that U of A offense off the field. If you can churn the clock up, turn this into a shorter game, make it a little bit more of a grind it out defensive, maybe not a defensive battle, but certainly one where you control the clock. I think you give yourself a much better chance to win.
Yeah, that sounds like the Washington game plan almost. Right?
A little bit, except when Emory Jones went down and
that's what I'm saying.
came in.
Once Bourget came in,
the game plan kind of changed real quick.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That part of the game plan, I think the way they adjusted on the fly.
Going into the Washington game, it was very similar. To keep that Washington offense off the field. I think this is certainly similar. Keeping that U of A offense off the field. Right. Don't give them extra possessions. Don't give them extra opportunities. Give your defense a chance to rest. I think if you can do that and run the ball, because I still think that's ASU's identity. They are a run first team.
Yep.
If they can just establish that line of scrimmage, create some push, get some running lanes going against this U of A defense that's given up over 200 yards per game on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think you give yourself a good chance to win. And
I think we're going to have
we talked about Ladarius Henderson being out, Ben Scott being out hasn't helped either. I don't know if either of them are going to play in this game, but nevertheless, you still got to go out there and try and do what you can and get to the second level, create some running lanes against this U of A front that has not been very strong against the run this year.
Correct. Let me flip to the next one. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your keys, yes.
They're remarkably similar. Again, we don't look at each other's stuff.
We don't discuss this really before we talk, we're recording here.
But we're gonna have to run. I think and one point I didn't put in here is we're gonna have to be better. Our third down conversion in the last game was very poor, and largely because we ran the same play 4 times in a row on third
short of
down.
The sticks. It was short of the sticks every time.
It was, and I think they're really going to have to study. I don't know, it may have been the best play on the sheet at the time, but you got to find a way to get the play designed so that you are at the sticks or beyond, or at the first down marker. That was
very frustrating for me.
It was very frustrating, and I think that's going to have to be fixed. But if we can get 170 yards out of our 2 backs, I think we prevail here. And my other big thing is, much like you got to make life uncomfortable for Delora. And for me, it's in the Wazoo game, he was being pressed. He was pressing hard. Those last 4 interceptions of his were he was under duress, and he was not comfortable. So I'm looking for big games from Soley, Edmonds, and Clark, who can drop in coverage and can read very well. They read the what the quarterback's giving them.
And as good of a season as he's had, Ro Torrance doesn't have an interception this year.
Right.
I'd love to
Right.
see
He's
him
overdue. He's
get one
overdue.
this-
Overdue.
Yes.
A guy his size, that's a dream. I saw Mike Haynes over the week or last week. What a gift that must be, having a corner that's 6'3", 6'4".
Right.
My God, that's just unicorn stuff, man.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, I think we control the ground game. You really, if you see us get somewhere north of 170, I think we're winning this game. I think, and maybe it's the first team to 30 that's going to win this thing. The way it's shaping up, could win this thing. So,
Very possible.
yeah. So where are we, bud? We're on prediction time.
On our score predictions. I still think I'm a little bit of a homer in this game, but I still think ASU has the talent to go into Tucson and come away with a win. Assuming they're properly motivated and they can achieve our keys to the game, certainly. But I got them winning 31-27. I think that this defense will show up. They certainly won't contain or stop that U of A offense, but on a couple drives they'll hold them to a field goal. And I'd also like to see them get a red zone interception or red zone turnover. Again, They've only recovered one fumble all year. That's something else I'd like to see them do. Maybe recover a fumble as well. Just get after it. And remember, this is your rivalry game. It's the last game that a lot of them are going to play. So go out there, give it your all, and I think that ASU can still come out with a victory. And I got them winning 31-27.
Yeah. Again, I just copy and paste. I don't even look at what you do until I put my stuff up.
There it is.
And so I got this weird sense that we may go to overtime in this game, and it may come down to just how well we play in the overtime. We're well conditioned. I have not seen us look really badly out of shape in any game. It's just a matter
we
of
definitely played 60 minutes. We definitely played 60 minutes, even the losses.
Right.
You certainly remember that second half shutout against Washington State.
Right.
We didn't quit. Even when we were down 25 points against UCLA.
We shut Stanford down the second half. I mean, there's example after example of this team having this, the conditioning to it. And my question is just depth. You do want to, there's times
when you're not very deep, you got to have good condition.
That's right. So I just think that we can out-athlete them. While they may have the superior quarterback, our quarterback is not inferior in any way. I think it's just the reason
he's
why
still good enough to give us a chance to win.
That's right. And quite frankly, the third the conversion can go up. His conversion rate can go up. Completion rate can go up. Just got to give him enough time. I think, instead of asking for 2.7 seconds, you're asking for 3.1 seconds out of your line maybe this week, just to hold the blocks a little bit longer. Yeah. Oh, it could. But my point is, I think if you put you get our running backs off early, you got to get out to a good start. You can't get behind by 2 scores. You got a chance. Yeah, I'm a homer too, but I do like the fact that we out-athlete them in a lot of positions, especially the wide receiver core against that weak secondary. Is where I'm thinking we'll get some strikes, but I do think our 2 running backs will top.
Assuming we can give Toby some time, or Trenton some time.
Yeah, no sweat.
But you have them winning 37-30 in overtime.
Yeah, I should have put OT on there. I have this sense that we're going to go to overtime. So and teams are going to
a lot of these games tend to. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but it should be interesting. 1 o'clock kickoff. Again, an early kickoff time. Haven't seen a ton of those in this game. They're usually like 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock kickoffs. ASU 4-point underdogs. I'd like to see them cover that, if nothing else. And then I think that is a lot of points. 65.5. That is a lot of points. I think we both have them on the under. that.
I'm not. I think I'm right.
So
I'm
you're a
at six
67.
six
That's right.
seven. Yeah, so I'm a point and a half over. Um, but no, it's a because we both teams can score points. It's pretty
Yeah,
clear.
they've shown they're capable of it, certainly.
Yeah. So
So
anyway, that's about it for us.
yeah, that's it for us.
If you're
I mean,
if
obviously
you're
we'll be back next week to recap U of A and talk about the off season. Um, it's been a tough year, but still something to play for here. One more game to go, and let's keep that cup in Tempe where it belongs. Yes.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
that'll do it for us. Say goodnight. Go Devils. Forks up. No pity for the kitty.
Let's go.